Hey, welcome back to the Questions About Life podcast. I'm Brian Fleming.
And I'm Daniel Broome.
And today we have a very special episode for you. Daniel is going to be interviewing my wife, Jamie. And we're going to be talking about how a lot of the trauma Jamie's been through in her life. She went through the same psychedelic-assisted therapy session program that I went through, and how it healed her, literally healed her of 34 years of childhood trauma in just 8 hours with what she's going to talk about. That's not an exaggeration. That's not bullshit. That's literally her life story. That's literally what happened. And she's going to go into detail about how that happened and how you can learn more about this kind of stuff as well. And it's just amazing. And so I'm actually going to be stepping out of this because she's going to sit here and Daniel is going to interview her because I'm so close to this thing. I've been through it myself where, you know, if I interview her, it's like I already sort of know the story. So I think Daniel will probably have better questions than I will.
Yeah, and I can't wait to hear the full story either, because I don't know. I mean, I've heard bits and pieces here and there, but I've been looking forward to this. Clearly, there's been a positive change in Jamie, and I can't wait to talk about it with her.
Yeah. All right, well, let's roll.
Everybody, welcome to the stage, Jamie. Well, thanks for doing this. First of all, Jamie, this is awesome that you're willing to tell us sort of your experience and how it's helped you.
Yeah.
I know I'm curious about it. Sounds like quite the journey that you've been on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, you have been healed from some trauma that you've had in the past.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that trauma?
Yeah. So really it started, my mom and dad divorced when I was, I think I was 3 or 4. And every time I would go see my dad, I'd visit my dad. He lived in the same town as my uncle, his brother. And
so pretty much as long as you can remember. Because did you have any memories when your parents split up?
no, because I was 3, so I have no memories of.
So it had always been that way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have no memories. I have 2 older brothers, and so the oldest, he remembers Dad being home. My other brother has a few memories of that, but I don't have any memories of that at all.
Gotcha.
So, it started with just
Did you live with your? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Did you live with your mom and go visit your dad?
Yeah, so I lived with my mom, and then I would go visit my dad.
Gotcha.
So it started out where he lived near my mom, so it was like every other weekend I would go and see my dad.
Gotcha.
But then he moved to Oklahoma, so then it was every few months or so, or on holidays I would go and see him.
Yeah.
But I primarily lived with my mom.
Gotcha. And how was your relationship with your dad? Was he a good dad when you went to see him, or was it?
Yeah, I mean, from what I remember, I mean he was a good dad when he was around.
Okay.
It started out where, you know, on holidays and things like that, I would see him. But as I've gotten older, it turned into kind of like not very often would I see him or really talk to him too much.
Makes sense.
So,
so that was part of your traumatic childhood. Was that sort of dynamic of toggling between parents?
Mm-hmm.
And what else? What else happened to you?
Well, his brother, my uncle, raped me. And then molested me for, probably, I'd say at least probably a couple of years until I finally, spoke up about it.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, you just dropped a bomb on us right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, was that happening for as long as you could remember? Or do you remember the first time that it happened to you? I mean, we don't have to go too down that memory with you right now, but do you?
Well, I remember being raped by him. I remember we were going for a walk in the forest, and I remember it being fall time, because I remember looking down, there was leaves everywhere. So I remember that rape vividly, in detail of how it happened. And then I remember being upset. I remember crying afterwards because it hurt. And so he didn't rape me anymore, but then he just kept molesting me.
How old were you when that happened?
4, I'm guessing.
Wow. That's terrible. So obviously I mean, my question to you was, what kind of trauma did you have? Obviously, you had some very severe trauma.
Well, and then his other brother, my other uncle, made me do stuff to him once too, and I was, I think, maybe 7 or 8.
Gotcha.
So,
Where was your dad during all this? He wasn't around, or?
the weird part is that when my uncle would abuse me, the main one that raped me and abused me, it would be like we were in the kitchen, like, or the dining room, and everyone else was in the living room. So like they were in the other room.
Okay.
So I'd sit on his lap and then he'd start, messing with me and stuff. So it wasn't like he was ever far away. Now the rape, yeah, we went for a walk. It was just him and I, but all the other times it was kind of like they were in the other room.
Yeah, and he was just kind of being sneaky. Was there alcohol involved and stuff too, or just
No.
just being a big pervert? Sounds like.
Yeah.
Well, I can't imagine. I can't imagine how traumatic that must have been back then, and even living through it again, talking about it right now. So thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add to the abuse?
I think it was kind of like it was always like, I want to see my dad, I miss my dad. But then there was this side of like, but I know if I go see my dad, I'm going to have to be abused again.
Right.
So it was kind of like I wanted to see my dad, but I didn't want to get abused. And so I didn't know what to do. And that, as a 4 or 5, 6-year-old, until I finally, because he'd tell me, don't you say anything, you'll be in trouble.
Oh, man.
And then I think at like 6, I got sick of it. I think I just got to a point where I just got tired of it happening every time I'd see my dad. And so I told, the best way as a 6-year-old could say, you touched my fronty. Like, I didn't know how else to say that back then,
When you were explaining
when I told.
Who did you tell first?
I told my dad, because I think it had just happened again. And I just was like, I don't care anymore if I get in trouble. I'm sick of it happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think my dad called my mom. I don't really remember too much. I just remember we were in a living room. I told my dad, my uncle's in the room, my grandparents, like, it was a room, my stepmom, there were several people in the room when I told. It's weird how you remember little things as a kid, like they were drinking iced tea. Like, I don't know why I remember the little details like that.
Well, it was a big moment for you when you first told, because you were, I mean, you kind of alluded to this earlier, I can't imagine being 6 years old faced with the toggling between, I want to see my dad, but I know what happens to me when I go over there and see him. Do I want to have to deal with that? And then, I mean, that's hard for a 40-year-old decision to toggle with.
Yeah.
At 6, I can't imagine. And then when you went and finally told your dad, that was a big moment for you. That took a lot of courage, I imagine.
Yeah, so. I think so. I mean, looking back now, I'm like, man, I was brave. But like back then, I was just like, I'm just tired of this happening to me.
Yeah.
Pfft. So I remember telling, and I remember my mom telling my 2 brothers, you go see your dad. Do not let Jamie alone with your uncle. Like, that was kind of what I guess they had. I don't remember that, but that's what my mom had told my brothers.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. And I remember one instant of like, he got me alone. We're walking down this dirt road, because at the end of the dirt road on this farm that my dad lived on at the time, I remember like him and I were walking down the road.
Your uncle and you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And my brother, the youngest of the 2, he was like running after me, and I remember thinking, why is he so mad at me? Like, I'm just walking. Like,
you thought your brother was mad at you?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, he was mad because my mom had told him, do not leave Jamie alone with your uncle.
Yeah.
So he was like, and I remember him walking up to us, and he just looked like really mad.
Sure. Kind of like, hey, what are you guys doing? Where are you guys going, kind of thing.
And he still to this day remembers that. And he was like, I was trying to protect you and trying to do what Mom had told us to do.
How old was your brother at the time?
Oh, gosh.
How much older than you is he?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's see. I'm 38. I think like 4 years, I think.
Okay. So you were, say, 5 and he was like 9 doing that. Oh, wow. Yeah, when you said your brother came running after you, I pictured like an 18-year-old or something. But he was even tasked with such a difficult decision.
I was like probably 6 or so at the time, and then he would have been like 10. Yeah.
What a terrible position for a 5 and 9-year-old to be in.
And then my older brother, he recently mentioned, he's like, and I don't have any memory of that. Where was I? So he had some guilt he had to work through with that too, of where was I with this? I'm the big brother. Sure. And I was like, oh, no. You can't put that on you. Like, no. Like, you were a kid too. You're probably just playing video games or
he was
outside,
doing the best that he could
lunch,
with the information that he had, right?
Yeah.
So so you had the big confrontation, not confrontation, but you told brothers were sent to kind of protect you guys, or protect you. And then what happened after that? Did the abuse continue?
No, it stopped.
Okay.
There were a few times that my stepmom would tell me, like, as an adult, she's told me there were times that he would try to get you alone, but because you told and we knew about it, she's like, there's no way I was going to let you alone. Sure. Now, in my mind, I'm like, okay, you know that he's touched your daughter. You know that he's touched your stepdaughter. Why on earth would you even let that guy around?
Yeah,
period?
Why would you associate yourself with him any longer?
That to me still makes no fucking sense to me.
Yeah, I understand.
No sense. I'm like, I don't understand that. I just can't comprehend how. I mean, because we have 2 kids, and there's no way in hell I would let my kid be around somebody like that if.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was a different time back then, but still, that's no excuse. There's no way I would do that.
Do you think that was because they didn't believe you, or they thought it might not be true, or do you think that was because there was some sort of relationship that they needed, or they felt like they needed to preserve with Uncle?
I don't really know. I've talked to my dad, a couple years ago about it. He was very torn on what to do. He had talked to the authorities, and the authorities said, if you go forward with this, she will have to testify in front of a judge, and she's been through so much already. Sure. And so my dad was kind of like, I don't know. I still feel like I wish that he would have done that. But I mean, he did. I don't know. I don't have any anger towards him anymore. Towards that, I did for a while, but I don't. He just did what he thought was best, and he knew I had already been through enough. So maybe, I mean, that's kind of what they told him, is like, well, are you sure you want to put your little girl through that too?
More, and relive it, Well, so let me ask you this: did anybody, at that point you were 6, 4, 5, something? Well,
it started at 4, and I think finished maybe about around 6 or so. Mm-hmm.
So, did anybody that was in your life offer to you any sort of potential remedy for what they understood you went through, right? I mean, it sounds like a lot of people were aware of it. Your mom, your dad, your grandparents and stuff. Did anybody kind of pull you aside and go, hey, I know that what you're going through is tough. You should maybe try doing X, Y, Z?
I mean, I remember when I remember in elementary school, I was going through counseling. I would see like a counselor would come into the school and we would talk, but it wasn't really normally about the abuse. It was more about the divorce.
Okay.
I remember when I was like 12 going to like a Christian counselor. So I grew up very religious in a Christian home. And so lots of prayers for me, Christian counseling, but I didn't feel like none of it really did anything for me.
So with the Christian counseling, it was a lot of just, we need to pray about this and that kind of thing as like a remedy for, which is actually, it seems like is a pretty common recommendation, right?
Yeah.
You hear that a lot.
Yeah.
You hear that a lot, which is probably well-intentioned, but doesn't always solve the problem, right?
Well, and as I got into high school, I for some reason that year, my freshman year in high school, I don't know why. The only thing I can think of is I was dating a boy and he was very possessive. And so he slammed me against the lockers one time because I gave a guy friend a hug. And that, I don't know why, but that for some reason triggered all of that. I think that's kind of what triggered it all. Mm-hmm. And so I began like cutting my wrist in high school, very suicidal.
Okay.
Somehow somebody found out that I was doing that. I wore lots of long sleeves, tried to hide it. Somebody found out. I still to this day don't know who to thank for that, but they found out and told the counselor. Child Protective Services got involved. I had to be in front of a video recording all of what happened to me. I think they did, what do you call it? He can't come near me kind of thing.
Yeah, restraining order.
Yeah, so that happened. They went to Oklahoma where they are and did all that. My grandmother then said she didn't want to have anything to do with me, so that made me even more suicidal.
Why not? Why didn't you? Because of the cutting? She just heard about that?
No, she didn't believe that my uncle had raped me and molested me, or that her other son had molested me. So
gotcha.
She didn't want to believe any of that, and so for that reason, she didn't want to have anything to do with me. And so that just made it even worse for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, nobody likes being called a liar, but it's almost like it's on a different level of being called a liar about something like that. Something as consequential like that to somebody that, and if we forget sometimes, to somebody that's not even an adult, doesn't know how to deal with these sort of things that are, were happening to you. So,
yeah. I remember that summer I went to like a church camp, and I did feel that helped me a little bit to an extent where I wasn't suicidal anymore. So that was good, but it still I wasn't still healed at all in any way, really, besides just not being suicidal. The
church camp, probably the community and interacting with others was probably helpful, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so we kind of have a good picture of that part of your trauma. Mm-hmm. And then let's move forward. You were in a car accident 5 years ago?
2020, right when COVID happened.
Okay, and this is 2022, so
almost 3 years. March will be
about 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And you were T-boned. You were in your Mustang.
I miss that Mustang.
With your daughter.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Kaylee.
Yep.
And Kaylee's side of the car got hit. Is that right? Do I have that right?
Well, she was sitting behind me.
Okay.
So we were hit on the passenger side.
Gotcha.
Thankfully, she was sitting behind me. So we were literally almost home, and you have to cross over traffic that's coming the other way to get into our neighborhood. And so, it was a flashing yellow, so you go under the light like you're supposed to, and I waited till it turned straight yellow. Everybody looked like they stopped, so you cross over the traffic that's going that way, and the guy ran the red light and just T-boned us. And
I saw the pictures. It was right on the passenger door.
Oh, there was no passenger seat left.
Yeah, it was. He was going through the car.
Oh, yeah.
And, and the car was totaled. Mm-hmm. You sustained some injuries. Tell us about that.
Yeah. I herniated disc in my neck, and also a herniated disc in my low back. Lumbar area, and my daughter broke her left arm, and we both sustained concussions from that as well.
Okay.
She recovered great. Like within like a couple months, she was great.
Yeah.
Me, it's been a 2.5 year process for me of procedures and surgeries that I've had to have. Yeah,
understood. And part of that, the surgeries, was you were prescribed something to handle your pain, to deal with the sort of pain with that, right? Mm-hmm. What was it? What were you prescribed?
Hydrocodone.
Which is an opioid that has been a hot topic in the past several years because it's, I think starting in the early 2000s or whatever, it was really commonly used, and even up until 2020 and today, they're still prescribing it. But it's a very highly addictive substance.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's basically synthetic heroin, as addictive as heroin. So it's something that is a kind of a double-edged sword because it does help with pain.
Mm-hmm.
I have some experience with it too, and but it does also get you a little high, get you kind of feeling. There's no guilt in that though, because it's like it's not the high that makes you want to keep taking it. Your body begins to crave it.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you were on how many pills were you taking a day?
Oh gosh. I think I started out like 5 a day probably.
Okay. That's a lot.
I think it was every 4 to 6 and it was every 4. I was like, oh, and then sometimes even every 3 because I'm like, okay, it's going to take me an hour for it to kick in. So I'm taking it at every 3.
Yeah.
Basically.
Understandably, because of the surgeries and procedures that you had, you were in a lot of pain, and you didn't want it to wear off, and then have to experience that pain and waiting for the other one to wear on.
Because I had some neuropathy from the herniations.
Okay.
So my arms would go numb. They would start burning. My legs would burn. They would go numb randomly. I'm walking down the road and all of a sudden parts of my leg are numb and I'm like, Brian, like my leg is numb again.
Yeah.
I mean, thankfully that doesn't hurt, but it's annoying, you know?
Sure.
Or my arms would just be like they're on fire and it just hurts so bad. And there was nothing that fixed that. Even the hydrocodone would help it to an extent, but it still didn't take all that away.
Yeah, kind of dulled it a little bit, made it manageable.
Yeah, that's kind of what it did. It made it manageable.
But naturally, I'm assuming that what happens to 99% of people that are prescribed hydrocodone, your body started to become dependent on it.
Yeah.
And and I don't know. You correct me if I'm wrong. The pain started wearing off. Began to heal, but your body was still dependent on the 5 pills a day or however many that you were at that point in time.
Yeah, I was still. I'd gotten to like it was like every 4. I think like 4 a day is kind of what I kind of worked myself down to every 4 pills a day. But still, that's still every 6 hours.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've had some experience with it too, and I know that if you're hooked on that stuff, the pain and discomfort that you feel from not being on it is worse than like surgery. It's worse than like I'd rather just go cold turkey on a surgery.
Gosh, yes.
So, okay, that was 2020. Okay.
Because there were a couple times where they couldn't get the prescription in time, and so there was like a day or two that I didn't have it, and I mean, oh my gosh. I mean, I just remember just bawling to Brian like, oh my God, can I just die? Yeah. I mean, I remember there were so many times more than I told Brian about. I finally ended up telling him about it, but I remember like there were times where I'm like, if I just went into this bridge and crashed and died, I would be better off because I was just so like depressed because I was in just so much pain. The only time I wasn't in pain was when I was asleep. Yeah. So I'm like, can I just die? Yeah. And I remember telling him, I'm like, I've been feeling like if I just crashed into this bridge that I would be better off. And I told him because it had started to be like a couple times a week I started feeling that way, and that kind of concerned me. I wasn't suicidal, but I was like, but I would be better off if I was just gone because then I'd be out of pain. Yeah,
that's a desperate place to be in. And I feel like, we're some of the lucky ones because now it's easy to imagine why people that are addicted to drugs are out there killing each other or living on the street or burning all their family's bridges because that desire for it is just so strong.
Gosh, yeah.
But how many pills are you taking a day? How many hydrocodone?
None.
You're not on them at all.
No.
Right? Mm-mm. So somehow you did that. You found a way to get away from your body to being dependent on those pills. Mm-hmm. And then also, from talking to you before we started recording, you're in a much better place with that trauma as well.
Yeah.
Tell us how you did that.
Well, I'd start with saying that Brian went through it, which I think he's talked about this on the podcast too. Brian went through a program in Mexico, and he came back changed, healed.
Brian's somebody that has, he was blown up by a suicide bomber in Afghanistan. Jamie's husband. co-host of this podcast, and he had some PTSD associated with that. And we've gotten into his story a little bit, but that's why he went to go do the
psychedelic therapy. Yeah, assisted therapy. Yeah.
So he went and did that. He came back. You saw a change in him?
Oh yeah, right away. I mean, just wasn't as angry. Very like he would still get pissed off or angry about things, but it takes a lot longer for him to now, instead of just immediately he's full blown angry and pissed off. Now it kind of, he's like, okay, I don't need to get mad about that. It's not that big of a deal. It's kind of like he can kind of talk himself down most of the time now.
He's more patient.
Yeah.
I know when I first saw him, when he got back from that, he came over and visited me and told me the story. And I think the first thing that he said to me, I opened the door and I said, "Hey, Brian, how you doing?" And I think the first thing he said to me was like, "I've never been better. I'm a different person now."
Yeah.
I was like, "Awesome, man. Come in. You want some coffee?"
Yeah, definitely.
So you saw this change in him, and then you made the decision to go and...
Well, then I wanted to go really bad, and then his mom went through it and came back completely healed. And I'm like, okay, I really need to go. I wanted to go we tried to go at the same time, me and his mom, but it just didn't work out. I wasn't off of my pain medicine enough.
Okay.
They said, we want you to get to every 12 hours on the pain medicine, and then we can bring you into the facility. Nice. But we can't bring you in until you're to that point. So I worked hard for a month with my pain doctor. I was like, look, I've got to get off this stuff. Mm-hmm. The whole time I wanted to be off of it.
Right.
I just was like, mentally, I wanted to be off of it, but physically my body had already been hooked, because according to the pain doctor, you get on that stuff for a week and you can get hooked on it.
Oh, yeah.
And I had been on it for
so
2.5 years.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's not easy to just, like a light switch, get off that stuff. And so it was a process for a month and every week I would like, okay, we're going to cut the pill down a little bit. Okay, now we're going to just only take half of that pill. So you're only getting 3.5 pills every day. Okay, sure. Now you're only getting 3 the next week. Then we're going to get 2.5. And that's kind of how it kind of wean off. So that I could get to just 2 a day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's cool that it's interesting that program had sort of a requirement, like a minimum. Mm-hmm. Like, do this, meet us halfway, and then we'll take care of the rest. That's pretty cool. Yeah. So you got to 2 a day. And you got out there to California, right?
Yeah.
Was it California?
Yep.
And what happened there? What'd you do there?
Oh, man. Shoot. I got there. Now, they have you, before you even go, you have to do like EKG, things like that, to make sure that you qualify to go through the psychedelic therapy.
That you're healthy and your body's resilient and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So even when I got there, that day I got there, they still made me do urine again, blood work, another EKG, just to double confirm you're good to go. Yeah. So they have you do that, all of that. Attacks. Yeah. We don't need any of that. So I did that. So the first day was pretty chill. The second day, I think they gave me like fluids, things like that.
And you weren't taking any pills at this time?
I was.
They were giving you 2 a day?
Just the 2 a day.
Okay.
And so then the night we were going to take, it's called Ibogaine, and it's from the tree Iboga from Africa. It's from a bark from a tree.
Awesome.
So cool. Gosh.
But you guys weren't just eating bark.
No, they made it into like a pill form.
Okay. Okay.
So they had Brian and his mom both had kind of prepped me. Hey, this is kind of what to expect. Then you get there, they kind of tell you the same thing. Hey, you might see really cool things on the Ibogaine. You might hear really cool things. Just be open to whatever it shows you. I remember them telling me, if there's anything that's uncomfortable to see, all you have to do is open your eyes, and then you can close your eyes again and it won't be there. Okay. So they also were like, set an intention. What is your intention for coming through this program? What are you hoping to achieve?
Sure.
We did like a little fire ceremony. So like I wrote the couple things down that I wanted to overcome, which was getting off the pain pills, and also I went there expecting to be healed from that trauma. Like, I didn't question it. I just knew. I remember that morning, flying out early in the morning, telling my kids bye. Oh, I'm going to get all emotional. But I remember like crying when I told my kids bye, because I knew that the Jamie that's coming home is not the Jamie right now. That's like, awesome. I just knew that I wasn't going to be the same.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I just realized I don't even think that we touched on that when we were talking about you. We talked about what happened with your trauma, but also it sounds like you felt like you were still being affected by that trauma in your everyday life.
Oh, every day. Aside
from the car accident, aside from the dependency on the opioids, you also were kind of seeing life through the trauma filter.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Even as a full-grown adult, wife of 2 kids.
Yeah.
It still kind of affected your life.
Oh, yeah. I'll get to that, but a lot. Yeah, definitely. And in so many ways, it controlled every part of my life. And so, so we did the fire ceremony. I wrote on there, I wanted to, get off my pain medicine, and I wanted to finally heal from that trauma, and I just knew I'm going to come back and be a different person. And so that was why it was really hard when I told Brian bye, when I told the kids bye. It was so hard because I just knew I wasn't coming back the same.
They were saying goodbye to the old Jamie for the last time.
Yeah.
And they were going to meet the new Jamie. And you knew that was going to be better.
The original.
Right?
Yeah.
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 For the first time, even Brian, because you met her after she was 4. So
we were 21 when we met. So we were babies.
It must have also been exciting.
Yeah, I was excited. I was nervous. I mean, I kind of very mixed emotions about it. Pretty nervous about the DMT, just because I've heard it's so powerful. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh my God. Even there, like the day before even taking that, I was like, my stomach was just, and the whole day, just in knots. And then we had to like postpone it a few hours because the people that were doing it had to meet later to do that with me. And I'm like, oh my God, I just want to just get it over with because I was so nervous about that.
Well, you guys did the Ibogaine one day.
We did Ibogaine.
And then the DMT, was it DMT the next day or 2 days later?
With the program I went through, they have 2 different programs, but the one I went through was to kind of get off the pain medicine. And then the other healing took place was just great effects from that medicine. Mm-hmm. So with us, because I was on the pain medicine, I think I took it 2 days later. I took the DMT. Gotcha. Like I had 2 days to really, because I had to have a booster the second day or the day after I took the Ibogaine.
A booster of the
Ibogaine.
Oh, okay.
They give you 1 pill, and so that kind of I'll get into that. But I'm excited about talking about the Ibogaine.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can tell us about it right now if you want.
Yeah. So they start every hour. They give you 1 pill.
Okay.
So they have you do like they have you set up this altar. So they have you go get dirt from the ground, water, and like branches. So they kind of water, earth. I don't know. They have you do all that. Then they have you, if they have you send pictures ahead of time. Hey, these are going to be pictures that we can have at your altar. So I had one of just Brian and I had one of a family picture, and then I had one of my papa who had passed away a long time ago that I was hoping to see on the Ibogaine.
So they had you build an altar.
Yeah.
To be to look at when you were on the Ibogaine? Is that what you said?
Well, I didn't really know. You don't really look at it when you're on the Ibogaine because you're too busy with all the cool things you're seeing.
But you're
they have it.
Near it.
They have it, and they do it. They did it in our room. So I was in my own room, and I had my own nurse that they would kind of alternate nurses, but I had my own nurse in there with me, monitoring me the whole time. They hook you up to the heart monitors the whole time, so they give you like a mask thing that you can't see through, at all. And I remember I wore it at the beginning, and then I remember it was like I couldn't, because I was still seeing things even with or without that mask on.
Sure.
And it was almost like, get that off me, because it was like it was like uncomfortable for some reason, which it was weird because his mom and Brian both they had it on the whole time. Me, I was like, I couldn't have it on my head. I don't know why. It was too much. But it was really funny because I remember every hour they give you, start you with a pill. And I remember, it's kind of funny. I was like, oh my gosh. So I think it was maybe after the second or third pill. Mm-hmm. And I think I only needed, I think 4. I think everyone else usually takes 5, but I don't think I took 5. I think I only needed 4. But I remember after like the first or maybe after the second pill, I was like, my hearing got crystal clear. Like, I mean, Spider-Man hearing probably, I guess. I don't know. But it got real, I could almost hear like a ringing. It was so clear. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And I remember I could hear the marks because it was like the old EKG thing because the other one wasn't working for some reason, so they used an older one.
Gotcha.
I could literally hear the with my heart.
Oh, wow.
I could hear it.
And feel that rhythm.
Yeah. And I was like, and the whole time that I was on that for like 12 hours straight, in the back of my ear, I could hear it. And it was
the beat going. The beat
it was
never
really
stopped.
annoying because it was just I could hear the writing of it. I could hear the writing that
Yeah.
and I was like, oh my gosh, this is annoying. The whole time I could hear that. But the funny thing is I was, okay, I think it's starting to kick in was because the nurse walks up and I was like, oh my gosh. And he's like, what? And I was like, you have blue and white paint all over your face right here. Like all over his forehead, all over his nose right here. Just about like a mask almost. Uh-huh. And I was like, you have paint on your face. And the nurse is like, he starts walking towards me. I still see it. Walks towards me more. Still see it. He gets right here. And I was like, it's not there now. But I swear you just had paint all over your face.
Yeah.
So now it was like tribal paint. It was blue and white.
Interesting.
And I was like, every person that would come in the room when they'd switch the nurses out, I'd look and they all had it. It was the same blue and white paint, tribal paint.
Interesting.
Uh-huh.
Wonder what that means.
Well, for me, I felt like it was showing me that these people they're healers.
Okay.
So they
That's
all
what it
have that
represented.
paint. So for me, it represented that they're all healers of this medicine.
Yeah.
So why would they not all have it?
Right. They're all on the same team.
They're all on the same team.
They're all here to help you. Well, that's cool. So you started having visuals and
oh
things
my
like
gosh,
that. Yeah.
so many visuals. I was like, yeah, that was the first thing that I saw. And I was like, and then when he got right there, it wasn't there. And I was like, okay, you're going to think I'm crazy, but you totally did have paint all over your face right now.
He was probably like, yeah, I get that all the time. It's another day at the office.
Oh my gosh, it was so funny. I saw all kinds of weird things too. Just like, I remember it was weird. I saw this cookie cutter of a dog, but it was bright red, made of carpet. So I saw lots of just weird, random stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, why did I see that? Like, okay. I see lots of little girls running through forests. And I remember thinking, I miss my daughter. I want to see my daughter. And all I had to do was think that. And then all of a sudden I saw like now she's 11, but I saw a 5-year-old of Kaylee run past me. And I was like, oh, Kaylee, you know?
Yeah. Just by thinking that, she appeared.
Yeah.
Okay.
I saw a dog that I had as a kid who, when I was just going through all that stuff as a kid, his name was Britches. For all you who don't live in the South, britches is another way of saying pants or jeans that you're wearing. So he had really dark, his back legs were really dark, and it looked like he was wearing like pants.
Looked like he was wearing breeches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's a funny name for a dog like that.
So he ran right past me, and I'm like, what? Britches? You what? I remember seeing like my papa, which was that picture and that was what I saw him in, was that outfit. He had that black hat on, and he came up in a frame. For some reason, all the people I saw like came in frames, like picture frames, gold picture frames. And he came up and he's like, I didn't hear him say hi, but he was just like the biggest wave, like, hi, what are you doing here? You know,
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, you know. I remember, I'll get to the really cool part. So they had said, if you see something that you're uncomfortable to see, just open your eyes. So
Sure.
I remember, I'm running through a forest as a little girl, and I knew where it was going. I knew it was going to take me to the abuse. And, like, I get grabbed by my uncle. I see his face, and I wasn't ready. So I remember opening my eyes like, I'm not ready to see that yet.
You're saying he was grabbing you in the same way, in your vision, the same way that he did in real life when you were a kid?
He didn't actually grab me. It wasn't like that at all.
Okay.
But I knew that was kind of the way of, I think, it telling me, hey, we're going to go there.
Here's his intentions. He was grabbing you in
We're going to go through that rape scene.
Gotcha.
So that was kind of, I think it's the medicine's way of trying to prepare me. Hey, we're going to go to that scene. And I wasn't ready. And so I remember them saying, okay, just open your eyes if there's not anything you don't want to see yet. And so I remember opening my eyes. I was like, okay, I can't see that yet. So I closed my eyes again. I saw other things. I saw like every language, every single one of them was like a flash card of every language, like even like hieroglyphics, like
hieroglyphics. I think.
Yeah, like every single language. It was almost like in kindergarten you see the A and the lowercase a. You see all the numbers. Like it was almost like place cards.
Okay.
But every language,
alphabet.
and it was like they were like fast. I noticed that the music, whatever music they had, if the music was faster paced, then I saw things really fast. If it was like kind of slower music, then I kind of just saw it pass by me and then something else would appear. But it was crazy how the music affected it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was fast or it was slow.
That's cool. That's cool that they were playing music.
Yeah. I said, can you play some of the tribal music from over there? How do you say it? BT?
Bwiti.
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 Yeah. And so that was kind of the music. I'm like, I want to listen to that kind of music, you know?
Where the Ibogaine originates from.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying. Gotcha.
Yeah. So I was like, I want to listen.
Yeah.
Huh?
In Gabon, Africa.
In Gabon, Africa. Yeah. So that was kind of, I wanted to listen to that stuff. And, but some of it was really fast. And I was like, okay. I remember telling them, can we put some slower, relaxing music on? Because everything just kept, and I'm like, okay, it's starting to hurt my eyes. I can't see everything that it's trying to show me because it was too fast.
Yeah.
I remember seeing this huge life-size pill bottle, and it just poured out all the pills. All the pills just poured out. And I was like, okay. And then it went to this white that is so pure. It's not white here. Like I knew I was somewhere else because it was so white. And I remember thinking, like, Jesus, are you here with me? You know, I remember thinking that. And I saw this really beautiful painting of Jesus appear. And it didn't look right at me. It just kind of looked like where it was looking that way.
Okay.
So I could see the side of his face. And I was like, okay. And it was in the really beautiful, super expensive, like gold. You could tell it was real gold frame. It was really cool. Like really detailed gold frame. And then I saw my papa again, and he appeared and again in a frame. And he was, again, just waving at me. And that kind of went away. And then I heard, I still tell Brian this all the time. I wish I had that voice in recording. Because the voice was just, I guess, everything you hear about God, like God's love that he has for you and things like that. And how he cares about you, and I don't know. So all of that was encompassed in that voice I heard.
Just like in the tone of the voice.
Yeah. So you could hear the love from the voice.
Yeah.
And so all I heard was, "Are you ready?" And I knew, okay, it's trying to take me back to deal with that abuse.
Yeah.
And it just, every few seconds, he kind of repeated, "Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready?" Really calm, like I said, very peaceful, calm, loving voice. And I finally, in my mind, because you didn't really have to say anything, you just kind of think it. It was a very telepathic.
Yeah.
So I remember thinking like, okay, let's just get this over with. And so this time it showed me, it started out showing me like last year's picture. It showed me, it went backwards to pictures, and they kind of went fast of me every year until it went back to me being 4. Oh, wow. So every year. So I went through this 1 year ago. So it showed me, okay, you're 38. Okay. It showed me 37, 36 every year. Wow. It went all the way back down to like you at 4 picture.
Yeah.
So then I was like,
it kind of gave you like a heads up. It's like, here's where we're going with this. Yeah.
Yeah. And I knew, like, I knew immediately going there that I was going to get healed from this. I knew I was going to probably see scenes. And that was why I was nervous, because I already still had nightmares, flashbacks, like once, twice, 3 times, sometimes a week, even as a 38-year-old. So I was like, I don't want to deal with, I do want to deal with it, but I don't.
Right.
Because I was like, I don't want to feel this, that I feel every time I have those.
Probably something that you've had to spend a lot of time working on not revisiting.
Yeah.
And now here you are, like, I don't want to go there right now.
Yeah, well, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it took you there.
It did.
Yeah.
It did. And so, and this isn't how it happened for me, but for some reason it's kind of the way it showed me. Is I'm running through a forest again, and he grabs me, and I see that it's my uncle. And then it goes to the scene, how it happened. So he's walking me through this, I don't know where we were, other than it was like a vines on both sides of some walkway we went through. So, and it was fall time. And so it showed me, like, we're walking through the pathway, and it showed me the rape, and it stopped on the rape. And then it started out where it was just a few of the rape scene. And then if you've ever seen The Matrix, I mean, my whole vision turned into, like, it started out 50 of them, and then it went to 100, and then there was thousands of that rape scene.
Just
my
the
whole
same
vision,
scene thousands of times. Okay.
My whole vision was that rape. And that's when I threw up. They call it purging, I guess. And so I didn't throw up a ton, but I remember that's where I threw up. And I remember when I threw up, it was very hard to get it up.
Yeah.
It was like I was throwing up. It was very gross. It was very like I was throwing up the poison from that abuse.
Gotcha.
So it was like really gross. Tasted awful. I almost said amazing, but no, it was not amazing. It was awful. It was really terrible.
It's amazingly awful.
I remember there was another guy that was there with me, and he was getting off heroin, and he was going through Ibogaine at the same time I was, but in his room, I could hear him puking, and then I would see scenes of puke, or I'm trying to puke, and because your hearing is so crystal clear. I was like, oh my gosh, can he just stop? Because everything in my mind right now is puke. Show me puke. Which kind of helped because it helped me get it up. But it was like, oh.
Well, even normally if you hear somebody puke, I know if I do, I kind of get like that gag reflex. Mm-hmm. Can't imagine being on something that's like amplifying all of your sensations. I would have probably definitely thrown up too. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I remember... I saw that happen, so that I went through that whole scene. And like I said, it paused on that, and my whole vision was that. And then that went away. And then I saw my grandfather. This is weird. I have nothing to base this off of. I don't know if this actually happened or not with my grandpa. This was my dad's dad. He passed long ago. But it showed me, for some reason, my grandpa was raping somebody, and somebody was raping him, and somebody was raping him. And then it was a whole just line of just thousands of my vision of that.
Like generations.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, so that was kind of my way of thinking. Maybe it's showing me that it was I already knew it was in the family, but maybe it was showing me that it was in there maybe a lot longer than I knew.
Yeah, that's a good point, because Brian and I have talked about this in the past, or I have on Brian and I's podcast, is how people that are child molesters or rapists are more times than not were raped as a child. And it's like something that it's like they're passing that pain on to somebody else. So.
Yeah. So I did find out like a month before going to Mexico through the program that when my stepmom passed away last year from COVID, I do remember that I had met a cousin, and she had said that her dad, which was my grandpa's brother, raped her. So that already confirmed to me, I already knew that it was probably in the family more than I knew about already. Yeah. But just when it showed me that scene, it was just even more confirming, like, okay, wow, okay, this is really in the tree than more than I thought it was.
Yeah.
I remember seeing me when I was a little kid. And because I grew up in the church, anger isn't something that is a good thing. I'm told that's not a good thing.
Like the people at the church would tell you that.
That anger is not good.
Okay.
You know, well, on that, it showed me as a little girl, and I was pissed that abuse happened to me. So like, you can't hear me, but I'm like, and I'm screaming, and my face is really red. I'm mad. Like, probably looked like possessed or something, because that's how kind of creepy it looked to me.
Yeah.
Because I was so mad and angry, and I'm throwing my fist in the air, and I'm screaming, but nobody can hear me, which that also is very much how I felt, because I told what happened to me, and nobody did anything about it. They swept it under the rug. So in my mind, it was kind of like that even more was powerful, that I couldn't hear me screaming.
You had all this anger, you had all these emotions, but the church was teaching you that anger is bad, so you were kind of forced to suppress them.
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe that was sort of like I think that's what you're saying. It's sort of a depiction of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I saw that. I saw my stepmom. She kind of came through on a little frame waving at me. And I saw a lot. Like, I don't remember everything I saw. I do remember hearing Brian, his voice. He was like, "I love you." Like, and it kind of echoed. So I was like, "Oh, I love you too." I remember seeing like that family picture that I brought with me. I saw that, but it was made out of fall leaves, because I love fall time and fall leaves. But it was like our picture was made out of the leaves. It was really cool.
That's cool.
Like gold and red. It was really pretty. But yeah, that was a lot of what I saw on the Ibogaine.
But it was sort of generally a good experience, would you say? Or was it more like, because, you face like the rape scenes and stuff like that. Was it sort of like a roller coaster of good and bad? Or how would you describe the overall experience?
It was probably a roller coaster. I mean, I wouldn't say it was even bad though, because it was so healing for me that I don't know. I wouldn't even say it was bad. Like, even the things because when I saw the rape, there was no emotion attached to it. So when I saw it in third person watching it. So it was really amazing that what I was so scared of was the emotions I was going to feel. Well, I didn't feel any of the emotion. There was no emotion. I just watched it, and there was no emotions attached to it.
Probably for the first time, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
First time that you were sort of separated from that event, right?
Yeah.
That's. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to ask you. You said it was so healing, and I was going to ask you, well, what about it was healing? But that makes a lot of sense. You were able to sort of face it from a purely like stoic or where you're not invested in that, kind of see it for what it was instead of through your emotional lens, which I mean, not to downplay the emotions and everything it's a horrible thing that happened to you, but so that part of it was healing though. That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I remember like, I was like, wow, like that was, I remember the next morning, like thinking like, that was, I mean, I remember Brian telling me, you get that journal and you write, when you wake up the next morning, like write everything you can remember down. So like I have a journal and like it's a writing that I don't really recognize because I don't normally write like that, but I was trying to just write everything down I could remember.
It'd be pretty cool. So maybe someday we'll have the technology if you could record the experience somehow and play it back.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But I think I do find it very interesting that and cool that even like during or right immediately after the experience, you already sort of felt the healing effects from it. That you were able to describe it as healing.
Oh my gosh. It was like a huge weight was just like off my shoulders, like finally.
That is so cool.
I remember the next morning I did feel like, I remember going down and having breakfast. I remember I was kind of like this, like I still felt like a little bit of withdrawals from the pain medicine because they had given me one that night. And then a few hours later we started the process of the Ibogaine.
Gotcha.
And that's a 12-hour process of the Ibogaine. And so I remember the next morning waking up, I remember having breakfast, but then I was like, I don't feel good. I felt very nauseous, very sick. So they were like, well, we can give you one Ibogaine pill, which they call the booster. So we can give you one and it will take that last little bit of withdrawal off.
Nice.
So I was like, okay. So they gave me one pill and I didn't expect to see any more visuals, but I saw more visuals on that. Just one pill.
Back in your room, though.
Yeah.
Like they hooked you back up and everything. That's awesome.
One pill.
I thought you were going to say they told me they'd give me one more hydrocodone.
No.
And I thought, I was like, well, maybe that's cool too. But that's cool that it wasn't a hydrocodone, it was Ibogaine.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're still having withdrawals, and then I guess a day or two goes by, and then your day to do the DMT comes.
Yeah.
And you said that it was delayed, and you were a little nervous.
Oh my gosh. It was supposed to be at like 2:00 and then it was 4:00. I'm like, shit, I just want to just do this because I was so nervous.
I can imagine. I've never done DMT, but it scares me to think about it just because from the stories I've heard of how powerful it is. And so they had it like where you smoked it? You smoked the DMT?
Yeah, I smoked it.
Like through like a vaporizer?
Yeah, it was like
pen?
a vape.
Okay. And
I remember them saying, have you smoked before? And I was like, well, like here and there I'll smoke a cigar with Brian sometimes, but like they're like, this is not how you smoke that. I was like, oh, okay. So they're like, you literally like, when you puff it, you have to hold it you try to hold it for 10 seconds so that it can go down in your lungs more.
Okay.
And then they're like, then we're going to lay you back. And then like 5 to 10 minutes later, we'll have you sit back up and we'll have you do another puff of it.
Oh, okay.
And so I remember the first puff, I remember feeling very relaxed. I was like, oh, this is nice. Like I had, maybe too much alcohol to drink. So I was real chill, like a big buzz feeling. And then they set me back up. And I remember they had me smoke the second one. And like immediately after I smoked and they laid me back, I'm like, oh, wow. Like it was a weird feeling. Cause like I couldn't see anything. Like my vision was completely white. I saw patterns in the white. So it was the same white from Ibogaine. So I knew I was going wherever back. I was, heaven, wherever, I don't know really, but wherever I went, I mean, I believe probably heaven, but I don't know. But it was that same white, but this time there was patterns in the white, like shapes. And I remember the last thing he said to me, breathe and let go. Like let go of whatever. And for me, that has always been very hard because of me. I think being abused, I don't like roller coasters. I don't like things that I can't control. Yeah. So letting go was very hard for me to let go.
That makes sense.
And just let happen what happens. And I was like, I don't know. So it took me a few minutes of me literally self-talking inside my head. It's okay. I mean, I had the oh shit moment after I smoked that second one. I was like, oh my, what did I just do? Like,
Yeah.
what did I just do?
Yeah, because you can't go back now.
No, I was like, oh my God, what did I just do? I was so scared. And I just literally had to self-talk myself through it. Like, you're okay. God, I want to feel what love really feels like. That's kind of what I kind of went into DMT with, is my intention for that. I want to know what love really feels like.
Yeah.
And I just kept telling myself, I'm okay, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay.
And that helped?
So finally, I finally talked myself into it. And when I did, I felt like I exploded into this diamond.
Awesome.
Like, just shattered into this beautiful diamond. Yeah, it was almost like I felt like I exploded.
Like, as soon as you made the commitment to yourself to actually let go, it was just like, psh, here we go.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's cool.
And so I don't really, it's weird. Like I said, there was not any visuals other than just the white with the patterns. But it was very much like, I just all of a sudden, love like overwhelmed me.
Yeah, nice.
I mean, overwhelmed me so much that, and I have, thankfully, I was able to record my DMT experience. And so I have it on recording, which is amazing. Sometimes I still watch it and I start crying when I watch it. Yeah. But it's like all of a sudden it overwhelmed me so much that I just started bawling. And I'm like telling myself, I love you. You've been through so much. And I'm hugging myself, rocking back and forth. And I'm just, the tears are just flowing. And I'm just hugging myself. I love you. I love you. I love you. And then 15 minutes later, I'm back on Earth.
Back just being Jamie again.
Yeah.
But the new Jamie.
But the new one.
But the new Jamie.
Oh my gosh.
The original.
Because I was like, Brian, I feel so amazing on just the Ibogaine. How can it be any better than how I'm feeling right now? I would tell him that, and he said, you just wait. Yeah. He said, the DMT is the icing on the cake, babe. And I was like, okay. But I couldn't even imagine that, because I felt so great from just the Ibogaine that I was like, well, how can this get any better than this?
Yeah.
It's indescribable.
But it did.
And what's a couple interesting things about that we should mention is that prior to going to California, you weren't like a drug user. You'd never done like a mushroom trip or any sort of like smoking weed or anything like that. Like, this was like sort of was this your first experience with for lack of a better term, getting high, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we know it's not just getting high. It really is a healing medicine, but it was your first experience with alternate consciousness. So I can imagine how mind-blowing that was. And then the other thing that I think was really interesting is that you're talking about that feeling of love, that overwhelming, indescribable feeling of love. Mm-hmm. I think that's a common thing, like a really common, like Brian agrees, he's over here nodding his head, and I've definitely felt that on a psychedelic trip before. And then, like in the, because you mentioned you were raised in the church, and the Bible tries to describe God's love. But we're also taught, like, it's so big and so beautiful that your human brain can't really comprehend it. But in those moments, it's almost like, oh, there it is.
Oh, absolutely.
Now I know what that is.
Uh-huh.
So,
well, tell the part where you said gave you that love for yourself.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was going to say is, like, it was an overwhelming love for myself for the first time. Mm-hmm. So I was loving myself at 38 years old for the first time. That's
awesome. Like, and almost as if, like, you'd never just taken the time to just reflect and go and be proud of everything you've been through and how you handled it. And the DMT did that. Some people go through 15 years of therapy to get to that point. You took a couple hits off a vape pen and bam, here we are.
8 hours later from, 34 years of trauma gone in 8 hours after Ibogaine. And then the love for myself came with the DMT.
Let me ask you this question. So, you went through that experience, and even just after the Ibogaine, you you felt like you were healed. How did you start to reflect, maybe the day after, or maybe after your DMT trip, or weeks and months after? Did you ever reflect on kind of like did you feel like you found what you were looking for, and did you, and if so, or if not, did you compare this solution to other solutions that you tried and maybe had failed in the past? Did you sort of, did that sort of happen for you, or did you have that sensation like, oh, this is what I was looking for?
Yeah, I very much. I've had a lot of issues now being home, because in the church I did all these different programs that are supposed to help trauma survivors, get healed. I went through counseling, so many counselors, and the last one I had, she was great. I mean, I felt like I made some progress. I mean, it was bad, Daniel. Like, when I say I didn't like being in the dark by myself, driving in a car by myself, because I was afraid I was going to get raped again as an adult. I didn't want to park way out in a parking lot. Even a parking garage scared the crap out of me. I mean, but even parking just way out in a parking lot and having to go into Walmart or a grocery store by myself.
Yeah.
I mean, I lived in fear every day. Every single day. And so I would nap every day during the day because I was so exhausted mentally from fear just consumed me in every way of my life.
Yeah, I can't even imagine that. Like, especially as a man, as a male, a lot of us, I think it's a common problem, not problem, but it's something that exists in men where we're stronger and bigger physical creatures. We don't really think about what it's like to be anywhere, and that somebody could just overpower us at any given moment, take it over physically. And that's terrifying. And that's something that not only did you experience, but you spent 38 years of, every day just not knowing when it was coming again. Basically, right? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah. So that's, but you don't feel that way anymore.
No.
Is that right?
No,
Is
not
that
at
right?
all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I did everything that the church told me to do that would heal me. And this is why I have a problem. I don't know how to say this. I'm just going to just say it. I have a problem with church now.
Okay.
Because I did A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and none of it healed me. And then I go and I do this psychedelic therapy that the church
would
maybe
say
not all
came from
people
the
would,
devil.
but a lot of people would say, you can't do that. That's taking drugs. That's the only thing that healed me.
Yeah.
In 8 hours, I was healed of that trauma that I had been dealing with for 34 years.
Yeah. So in other words, you were doing everything that you knew to be the right thing. You were turning to answers from people that were supposedly had the answers, and if you just did what they said, then everything would be okay. But it turns out you went and did pretty much the opposite.
Yeah.
You went and did drugs, and
that God made.
Yeah, that are natural.
Yeah.
The bark's a tree, and DMT comes off the back of a frog.
Yeah.
Those are all created by God, right? And God's up there going, they put him there for a reason. He finally fucking found it.
Yes, exactly. And so, so it's been really hard. Like, I remember going to church when we first got home from Mexico, and I just would be like, I can't sit here. Like, it was just like, because I had felt what love really felt like, it was like, that's not it.
Gotcha.
That's not it. That's judgment. That's not loving people where they are. That is judging them. And so it got to be where we don't go anymore. and I'm glad. We believe in God. We are still believers, like
More than ever.
even more than we ever have. But I just feel like I don't want to go to church because those people aren't preaching what love really is. And I felt what God's love really is. And that's not it.
That's awesome. I mean, there's power in that, right? That you don't need the church
Yeah.
to have a relationship with God.
Yeah.
You can just go ahead and have your relationship and cut out, the judgment and other things that you found there. That's awesome. That's awesome. But, not to say church is good for some people. Some people enjoy the community and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's not what helped you.
It's not what helped me.
It hasn't been your experience.
Yeah, and it has helped other people. That's why I always, we tell our kids, like, church isn't bad. There's just people, there's some people in the church that are bad, though.
Sure.
Who said for mom to do this, this, and this, and it would heal me, and it didn't heal me, and almost made me hate myself more because they would tell me things like, it's something in you, Jamie. You need to get that out of your life. That's why you're not healed. It's something in you. You just need to let that go. It's like a pill bottle. Let the pill bottle go and don't walk back and grab it again. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It just some of that just didn't make any sense, and it made me hate myself.
Sure. Yeah. They were like, we accept your problem and we raise you some hatred towards yourself. Go ahead and take that with you. You still got the same problem, but we're just going to give you another one to take
Seriously?
with you. Yeah.
If
Yeah.
the prescription didn't work, it was somehow your fault.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't say that in the mic.
Yeah, like if some prescription didn't help, or this program that's through the church didn't help, somehow it was my fault.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, and it's kind of like those people that were giving you that advice, probably very well intentioned, but they also couldn't have been more wrong. Right?
Oh yeah.
So your relationship with the church has changed, and what other sort of things have you been doing to sort of celebrate the new Jamie? Have you picked up some painting hobbies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I want to start with saying I remember a month after getting home, and my car tire was low, and the kids wanted a snack. And I remember I just got in the car and it was dark. And I got in the car and I went and picked up the kids' pizza. And then I was like, oh, the car tire is kind of low. So I went from there and I went to the gas station, put the air in the tire. I get back in the driveway and I'm start bawling because I'm like, I just did all of this and I had no fear.
In the dark.
That is
Like,
awesome.
I'm in the dark. I'm by myself.
Making yourself vulnerable, airing up your tire. Right?
And yeah.
Yeah.
And there was no fear. That was the
realize
first
it.
time.
You
And I didn't
realize
even
it.
realize it till after the fact. And Brian's like, what's wrong? Thinking something's wrong. And I'm like, I just did all of these things. And I didn't have any fear.
That is such a win.
I just start bawling. I was like, oh my gosh, like I cannot believe, like, because fear literally it controlled every part of my life. So to not have the fear,
Yeah.
it was just like, wow.
What freedom.
Yeah.
Just like for the first time.
Yeah. It was crazy.
Gosh, that is so cool because, I mean, some people might look at that and it's like, you just went and picked up pizza, aired up your tire, but you were living in such fear that even those little simple tasks you would just avoid.
I wouldn't do them.
You would just avoid, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Thank you for.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you for bringing that up before we got into your paintings.
Yeah.
'Cause that's.
Yeah. So my paintings.
Well, tell us about why did you start painting? What got you started on them?
I don't really remember. I just remember thinking, I want to paint. The first one I did, that is the first one I'm going to show you. It was kind of like, I just feel like there's things I want to say about maybe the abuse I went through or things I felt about it or things the first one was like, I want to paint about how I felt about myself before I was healed. And then I want to paint on the other side of it about how I feel about myself now. And so that's kind of how it started was I just started with that one of I want to paint of before the trauma was healed and then after, and I want it to be both on one painting, and I want one side to be dark, and then I want it to be overshadowed by the light of the healing process that happened.
So part of that, though, is probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm guessing here, but you finally found yourself in a frame of mind where you had the courage to be honest about those things that you just described for the first time, and you just sort of I mean, there's so many different ways to relay emotions, right? Music, painting, poetry, dancing, whatever. You chose painting, and you finally, and so that this is another one of those things that is kind of like, oh, I can paint now, and I can be honest with my art and really depict the way I really feel, because you're not living in that fear anymore. So
Yeah.
you brought a couple here.
I did.
You mind showing us?
Yeah.
Showing us
So
what you brought?
the first one.
Probably hold it up right up against those ammo cans.
Okay.
Yeah, but right here would be great. Yeah.
Just so you
So-
can see it. There you go.
This is the first one that I did. So I was like, the left side says lonely, abused, broken, ugly, raped, unloved, dirty, used. And then I wanted the light to overshadow the darkness of me, of the new me. So the yellow side says, you are healed, lovely, wanted, pure, loved, chosen, transformed. And that's supposed to be me.
There you are.
But
Yeah,
it's
there's your
funny,
heart.
but because I sing, it's funny. My mother-in-law was like, oh, it looks like a musical note. And I'm like, it's supposed to be me, but I guess it could be a musical note too.
That's cool.
So
I like how the broken, ugly, unloved side is much smaller
yeah.
and much, I mean, it's ugly too. I mean, on purpose.
Uh-huh.
Uglier colors and everything. That's really cool. That's really cool. This is the first one that you painted?
Yeah, this is the first one I did.
That's
Yep.
awesome.
Yeah.
You got another one?
Yeah.
There's
I have a
more.
couple one.
You
Yeah.
can just drop them down there if you want.
Yeah.
There you go.
This is one I did. Actually just did this one a few days ago, actually.
You brainwashed me to hate myself.
Mm-hmm.
Now this sounds familiar. This sounds a little bit like your church experience.
Yeah. Yeah, because I did everything they said to do, and none of it healed me in the way that the psychedelic therapy did.
They convinced you that it was your fault.
Yeah.
Basically.
I mean, like, there's something in you that's holding you back from your healing.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Very cool. And hate is in bold red letters.
Yep.
For more effect.
And then also, like, I think also just the uncles that abused me, you know, they also brainwashed me into, you know, that's kind of a byproduct of being abused. You hate yourself and you feel dirty and used, and yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of both.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
And
then
one
we
more?
have
You
one
got
more.
That one looks
Oh
cool.
man, this is my favorite one. I did this one last week.
All right. Beautiful colors on this one.
Yeah.
Shine on You Crazy Diamond, which is a Pink Floyd song.
Yes, my favorite song right now.
That's your favorite song right now?
Oh my gosh,
Awesome.
yeah.
It's a really good one.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's a good song. I think we were talking a little bit about it last time I saw you guys. The first line in that song,
Yeah.
remember when you were young, you shined like the sun.
Yeah, and see, I don't have memories of before the abuse.
So you
for
don't
me,
remember
it
when you shine
hits
like
me
the sun. Yeah.
because I'm like, I don't remember having memories before the abuse.
Yeah.
So it hits me differently. But then I like the part he's like, come on, you painter, he names off different things. Just shine. Yeah.
Just encouraging you to become
Just to be
the
who you
real
are.
you, yeah.
Be who you really are and be proud of who you really are and love who you really are. And so that's why I wrote Shine on You Crazy Diamond, because shine bright, be who you are, create who you were created to be, and do it without judgment.
That's awesome. And I don't know if it comes through on the camera, but this is very shiny. It's very sparkly.
Yes, it's a glitter paint.
I like, it's like each painting has a word message, but it's also, you can see that you're relaying that message in other ways with colors and sizes and stuff. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's my favorite one.
And you've got a bunch of these, right?
Oh,
We've
yeah.
only got 3 examples here, but you've painted a bunch of them.
Oh, yeah, I probably have 10 or 12 of them. I painted, the past week I've painted probably 5 or 6 of them.
Very cool. So that's probably maybe, do you consider that like more of the process of healing, or are you just enjoying the new Jamie, or is it a combination of both? What do you think? What is it doing for you?
I think it's a combination of both. Like, I think it's feelings of how I used to feel about myself. Because there's one I've done that says, I'm not sorry. And growing up, it was, keep the peace, say you're sorry even if you're not wrong. And so just keep the peace. And so there's one that just says, I'm not sorry.
Sorry that you raped me, Uncle. I mean, that's kind
Right?
of ridiculous, right? Sorry that I was raped by you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not making a joke at your expense.
No.
I'm making a joke at the advice that you were given.
Yeah.
We would make that joke.
We would. Yeah. Yeah, we would. So
you're painting now, and
I got my tattoo.
You got, and now, what is the...
It says, you are healed.
Put it in the middle. It might be upside down, but it's okay.
Oh, maybe go like this with it.
Yeah,
Put
just
it,
don't move the table.
yeah, you could maybe even come in front of the mic.
Yeah,
There you go.
Like that.
Yeah.
There we go.
Up a little bit. There you go. Just tell them what it says.
So it says you are healed. And so when they gave me the booster pill of the Ibogaine, that was whenever I saw a few visions on that. It was, this time it was very telepathic, and it was just, you are healed, Jamie, in every way, is what I heard, like telepathically. So like in my mind, that was kind of, I didn't hear it audibly like I did the day before on Are You Ready? This time it was more of, in my mind, it said, Jamie, you are healed in every way. And when I heard that in my mind, I saw a very beautiful hot pink hibiscus flower, and it just kind of floated away. And so that's why I have the hot pink hibiscus flower there, and that's why it says you're healed. So it's a reminder that I'm healed. I don't have any of this trauma filter anymore on me. I love myself for the first time, and I'm healed in every way. And so it's just a great reminder of, what I've overcame.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, so now that you are healed, how is your life different? What is different with the new Jamie's life compared to the old Jamie's life? We know about the, you're picking up pizza, airing up your tire, those kind of tasks that were, you had some fear about. What other enhancements to your life have you?
I think one big thing was that just even going to a store and there would be a guy that would be staring at me. I mean, I immediately would just get so angry. I'm like, why is he staring at me? Like, stop staring at me. Like, I'd get so mad because fear controlled me in the way of thinking, if he's staring at me, then he wants to hurt me.
Yeah, he's a threat.
So he was a threat. So I lived my life with that trauma filter over just living everyday life of a guy staring at me. And it would make me just be fearful of, I don't want to be raped again. Like, stop staring at me. Because in my mind, you're staring at me. That means that there's something bad that you want to do to me.
Yeah, that's how this all starts, right? And I also imagine, because this is a unique situation where Brian also had some trauma he was dealing with. Your husband, Brian, co-host of this podcast, he came home healed. You came home healed. So we got a new Brian. We got a new Jamie.
Yeah.
How's that been going? You guys getting are the new Jamie and Brian getting to know each other, or
For the first time.
Yeah.
I don't want to get very intimate, but I'm going to say this. I remember the first time that we had made love after me coming home. And I remember afterwards, just crying because I felt like this is the first time that I'm making love to my husband for real.
Yeah.
without all of that on me.
Just
Without
allowing yourself to be vulnerable. Yeah.
So I remember like that like now every time we make love and all of that, it's so much more beautiful because I don't have all of that fear on me.
Yeah, that is awesome.
To me, it's like it's the way it was meant to be.
Yeah, it's the way it was meant to be.
Before everything got on you.
Yeah. And that's so cool because you guys have been married for how long? 15, 16 years?
December will be 17.
17 years.
Yeah, a couple weeks.
Most people you talk to that have been married for 17 years, you ask them about their sex life, and they'll say, well, it's 17 years. It's, it's the same as it's been for the last 17 years. So, and you guys have now had this experience, this healing experience. And
I have a hickey. I'm just saying, I have a hickey from him from a couple days ago. Yeah. So our marriage and our sex life has never been better.
That's very cool.
And the thing is, and I say this in the mic, but we didn't try to make that happen.
No, we didn't try to make our sex life or marriage any better. It's just, it's a byproduct of our healing. Because, and I've told him this, and I tell him all the time, like, because I love myself for the first time, truly, now I'm able to love him even more than I had before.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. You have more capacity to love. That's like an old, cliche. It's not a cliche, but they say you can't love anybody until you love yourself first.
And it's so true because I loved him as best as I could for 17 years. But like this whole year, because it's last week was a year since I went. And it's crazy, like, all week last week was so emotional because I was like, this was the day that I did Ibogaine. And then a couple days later, this was the day I did DMT.
Yeah.
And this was the day that I came home and we hugged and kissed for the first time for real. So it's crazy just to look. This week has been crazy just looking back on that it's been a year of healing and yeah, just our love for each other has grown so much more because we are healed.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And happy anniversary, by the way, on that.
Thank you.
And also, there's another thing. The old Jamie might not have sat here with me for the last hour or however long it's been and been so honest about your experience. I mean,
I would have been shattered talking about my abuse.
Yeah.
Because anytime I talk about it, or even just going and hearing somebody else talk about their abuse, I'd immediately just start bawling. Now, if I see it in a movie, it doesn't trigger me. It's still not like, because before it was like, turn that off right now.
Yeah.
Now it's like, I can watch it. I don't enjoy it. I don't like it, but it doesn't affect me like it did.
That is
like,
awesome.
Inside, it hurt to see that. And I'm like, no. So now it's like, okay, I don't like to see that. Who does? But it doesn't affect me in the same way it did before.
That is so cool. That is so cool. So I just want to say thank you for doing this. This, I mean, whoever ends up watching this, there's a lot of women that have been in similar situations as you. More than, I mean, I don't even want to think about how many have been through sexual trauma, and how devastating that is. There's millions of people out there that are dealing with addictions, and things as powerful as Ibogaine, the hydrocodone, and the opioids. So I think it's really cool that you had the courage to sit here and tell your story. Let me just ask you questions, and I think that's going to put more love out into the world because hopefully this will help. This has helped me a little bit.
Oh, good.
This has helped me a little bit. So,
I hope so. And we are going to put the links to the program in the description too, if anybody's ever interested.
Yep.
Because I honestly feel like everybody should go through this program.
Yeah.
Because everybody has their own shit that they're dealing with that they want to get through. Yeah.
There's a lot of there's a lot of conspiracy theories that we could discuss about how maybe this is a well-known medicine that is the healer. It is the answer for a lot of people's problems. But, without getting too conspiratorial, the government doesn't want a bunch of free-thinking people. They want taxpayers that go and follow the system. So
depending on medicine.
Depending on medicine, yeah.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna put the link in the bio to the program. It's in California. I could be wrong. Is it run by veterans? It's not run by veterans, but they help veterans with PTSD. That's one of the things that they focus on, as well as trauma survivors. You know, Jamie is somebody that's never done illegal drugs before. She maybe had a glass of wine too many, or, you know, on a number of occasions. But she found the courage to go and have this experience. It's changed her life. If anybody's interested, go to the link in the comments.
Yeah.
Click on that. They can answer your questions. Brian also has a lot of knowledge about it. Jamie does. And so leave a comment. Thanks for listening this far. Jamie, thank you once again for this is such a valuable episode. Might be our best episode ever. We might just have to fire Brian. I'm just kidding. We wouldn't be doing this at all without Brian. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.